Let's go down to Canberra and catch up with Liberal Senator for New South Wales, Dave Sharma. Thanks for joining us, Dave. Firstly, on this shambles with Don Harwin and the local government nominations, the President surely has to go. It's a complete mess and he's got to take responsibility.
Well, look, it's a complete mess. You're right, Chris. It's been a terrible failure. A lot of people have suffered terrible consequences as a result, and people need to be held accountable. Now, Richard Shields, the State Director, has gone. Whether the chain of accountability should go further than that, I personally don't know enough about what transpired to know whether that's the case, but clearly we need to look at what the failings were, who was involved, who was ultimately responsible, and yes, people need to go. Now, I don't know enough about it to go pointing the finger at anyone else.
There are messages that have been published in the Daily Telegraph that seem to suggest that Don Harwin was taking control of this. He was responsible for sorting this out, or therefore the mess that ensued. So let's put that aside. I don't expect you to be the judge and jury on that here and now, but as a New South Wales federal politician looking at a federal election inside 7 or 8 months, how much confidence do you have in the organisation now? You don't have a state director, and this bloke who oversaw this shambles is in charge.
Well, I think we need to move as quickly as we can to make sure we get back on track, that we continue with preparations for the federal election, that we pre-select candidates, that we gear up for a campaign. Now, by all means, we need to address and rectify the shortcomings that have clearly been manifest on this occasion. But at the same time, I don't want us to descend into a whole lot of internal navel-gazing and muckraking and infighting, which will distract us from the main purpose, which is running an effective campaign against Labor. So
you need a state director and a president who knows what he's doing.
We need a state director in place very quickly. I agree with you, and we need a federal president who's got the confidence and support of the overwhelming majority of party members. Now, we have to see how this unfolds before we can pronounce on that, in my opinion. Yeah,
you said federal president. I assume you mean New South Wales president.
Sorry, state president, New South Wales president, yeah.
Now, let's
nothing wrong with John Olsen.
Let's get on to federal parliament today then, and this attack on Peter Dutton. We know the Labor attack, that Dutton is a hard man, that he's divisive, that supposedly he's drumming all this up for political gain. We've heard that story so many times over the years from Labor. But did we learn anything new from the Prime Minister about what's been going on with these visas and the security checks involved?
No, we didn't. We just got a whole lot of obfuscation and deferral of responsibility and, citation of ASIO. I mean, Peter Dutton's point, I think, is quite simple, which is that when we're bringing people to Australia, we need to prioritise the security interests, the security and safety of Australians first. Now, I think that's a pretty straightforward point. It should be the fundamental responsibility of any government of the day. And the questions Peter Dutton is asking is, what are the security checks and safeguards and verification measures we have put in place before we've started issuing tourist visas, no less, to 3,000 Gazans that have been processed in an average time of 24 hours, sometimes as few as an hour. And we haven't got satisfactory answers to that. I mean, it's clear that, to my mind at least, that a rigorous process has not been put in place, that these things are being fast-tracked for whatever reason, and some of the normal safeguards we would expect to go through before we brought anyone to Australia from a war zone, from whatever religion, whatever ethnicity, are not being gone through on this occasion. And it's the Prime Minister's job to reassure us on that score, and he's been unable or unwilling to do so.
Labor says that people from Gaza came to Australia under visitor visas while the coalition was in power. Obviously, Hamas was the issuing authority to a degree in that territory. Is the situation different since October the 7th and the war began?
Well, look, I mean, I could say firstly, when I was Australian ambassador to Israel, there would never have been a tourist visa issued to a Palestinian within 24 hours, much less than an hour. These things normally take 2 to 4 weeks. And I know from a number of the cases I was involved in that the documentation, the interviews, the corroboration, even for a visitor visa from a Palestinian from Gaza who might have connections to Australia, takes some time. So, that process is being fast-tracked here. It's not the normal process that is being gone through. And, of course, I think the events of the 7th of October changed things because we've had an upgrade in the threat assessment of the threat environment in Australia. So we need to be more mindful of risks to social cohesion, risks of homegrown extremism, just as Mike Burgess warned us. So we need to be extra careful that we're not exacerbating the problem by the decisions about who we bring into Australia.
Thanks for joining us, Dave.
That's not a racist point to make.